In early 2026, the global economy was finally stabilizing. Inflation was cooling, trade routes recovering, and international shipping ports humming along at full capacity. Then, a massive military escalation erupted in the Middle East. Within days, commercial traffic ceased completely through two of the most critical waterways on the planet, the Strait of Hormuz and the Bab al-Mandab Strait. One of these waterways acts as the world's central energy tap. The other operates as the primary manufacturing highway connecting Asia and Europe. Squeezing these two geographic off-ramps simultaneously shoved the highly optimized global economy into a structural crisis it was never built to survive. Look closely at this satellite view of the Strait of Hormuz. At its narrowest point, the water separating these two landmasses is incredibly tight, measuring just 39 kilometers across. Despite that tiny footprint, roughly 20% of all seaborne oil and natural gas on Earth has to pass through this exact gap. This chart tracks daily global energy flow. When the strait closed in March 2026, up to 16 million barrels of oil per day plummeted completely to zero. The market panicked instantly. Brent Crude skyrocketed past $120 a barrel, forcing energy giants like Qatar Energy to declare force majeure, a legal contract cancellation due to extreme circumstances, freezing their liquefied natural gas exports. While these Gulf nations export vast amounts of energy through this strait, they are also dependent on it for over 80% of their own food imports. This reliance triggered an immediate grocery supply emergency. Store shelves were stripped bare overnight, and food prices across the region spiked by up to 120%. A few thousand miles to the west, the Bab al-Mandab Strait feeds directly into the Suez Canal. As the conflict spilled over, Houthi forces in Yemen reactivated their blockades. This made the entire Suez Canal commercial route completely uninsurable for shipping fleets. Major ocean carriers like Maersk and MSC were left with a single viable option: bypass the Mediterranean entirely and sail around the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa. This map shows the sheer scale of the logistical penalty. Diverting around the continent adds an extra 3,500 nautical miles to a standard voyage. That distance creates a massive geographic trap. A standard cargo run from Asia to Europe takes about 35 days. The African detour tacks on a massive 10 to 14 days of travel time. This diagram shows exactly why those 2 weeks are fatal. Most global factories run on just-in-time logistics. To save cash, they keep zero backup inventory on hand, relying instead on components arriving straight to the assembly line exactly when needed. With zero inventory buffer, a 2-week shipping delay starves the assembly line. The factory immediately stops producing. European electric vehicle plants and major tech manufacturers suddenly found themselves sitting completely idle, waiting for specialized parts stuck on ships circling Africa. Hyper-optimized global supply chains are mathematically incapable of surviving geographic delays. A waterway closure on one side of the planet guarantees factory shutdowns on the other. The 2026 crisis created a bizarre, paradoxical double effect for the future of global energy. In the short term, the shock forced a panic-driven relapse into dirty energy. To prevent immediate grid blackouts, countries like South Korea, India, and Bangladesh ordered their coal plants to run at absolute maximum capacity. Yet in the long term, the crisis served as a brutal wake-up call, forcing nations to aggressively accelerate their push toward domestic, secure, renewable energy independence. This closure broke the assumption that international shipping corridors would always remain open. Logistics planners have begun shifting focus away from total geographic optimization toward regional redundancy. Insurance providers and ocean carriers have now introduced a geopolitical premium into their pricing models. These risk-based surcharges represent a new, recurring cost that logistics firms must account for when quoting the price of consumer goods. Our hyper-connected world is incredibly fragile. A conflict in a single 40-kilometer stretch of water dictates the price of food in Europe, causes blackouts in the Pacific, and reshapes global alliances for the next decade. So what happens next? Do you think this crisis kills the era of cheap global trade, or will it just force us into a green energy transition faster? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit subscribe.